Today we're going to be talking about the 2025 AFCON final that have stirred a lot of controversy in Africa. The finals was played between Morocco and Senegal, and in order to understand what really happened, from Senegal winning on the pitch down to Morocco taking the title of the pitch in an arbitration court, we need to understand 1920. From Antwerp, Belgium, all to AFCON 2025 in Morocco, the walking off the field in protest has been a recurring theme in football history, right? So, in our story today, we are going to highlight the issues of selective justice, double standard, and the victory awarded in the courtroom. According to the law of AFCON and FIFA, walking off is when a team leaves the pitch. The entire team, that is goalkeeper and the players on the field, when they all walk off and they do not return. Current usage entails working off the pitch in 70 minutes or in the 50th minute, or not even, or forfeiting or not even showing up for the game. So according to IFAB law 3, and the FIFA endorsed rule, a player can only leave the field through the referee's permission, which is granted for substitution, equipment correction, or injury. Remaining on the pitch is a default state of a player. AFCON final case, the official report for the final clarity states only Captain Mane stayed on the field while other members walked out, right? So we kind of know the default rule of a player is to remain on the field, but in this state of protest, we find out that all the players walked off the field except for Mane. What are some reasons a player can walk off the field? Nature call, right? We saw this multiple times. Anyone that's a Real Madrid fan remembers Sergio Ramos. Sergio Ramos walks off the field or runs off the field when nature calls. He jumps out, does his thing, runs back, and all Real Madrid fans will cross our hands and hope we don't concede a goal. That is a form of walking off the field. And if we are to walk with the rule book or with the way AFCON ruled against Senegal, that will be a forfeit. Because if one player walks off and the rest of them stays on the field to play, that still categorizes somebody walked off the field. In terms of VAR, some players protest and they say we must go watch the VAR, and they point to the VAR, or they walk off to where the VAR is till the ref comes in. We've seen this multiple times in the Premier League, in La Liga, in the Serie A, and even in the World Cup qualifiers. That is another form of World Cup because their rule book does not exempt nature call, and their rule book does not also exempt walking off for a VAR's check. And then the focus of today has to do with the protest, another form of walk-off. When players leave in contest to the referee's decision, when they believe that whatever the referee has called was either biased or the referee didn't clearly see what was going on, which is the case of Senegal. When they walked off against Morocco in the finals, it was a protest. So we have three: nature call, VAR's check, and a form of protest. So walking through history of different type of walk-off or forfeits, we take us back to 1920s. And we're going to start with the first, in my opinion, the original walk-off in Antwerp, 1920. The Olympic finals between Czechoslovakia and Belgium. In the 39th minute, after a red card and a disputed officiating, Czechoslovakia as a country, they walked off the field and they did not return. And as a result, Belgium was given a default win, a 2-0 default. We'll get back to why the default win was given a 2-0 and how this number came into being. So this was the official first time I could find in the history book of a walk-off. And as a result of this walk-off, it became the tournament of the beaten qualifiers, in the sense that they needed to give someone the silver medal. Because if Czechoslovakia did not take the silver medal, then as a result, everyone that played the quarterfinals, that's Italy, Norway, Spain, Sweden, had to play a semi-knockoff stages to see who was going to get the silver and who was going to get the bronze. The French team didn't play in this battle of the quarterfinalists because they had already gone home, right? They had already assumed they didn't win a medal, and they didn't see this walk-off or this controversy even coming. Matter of fact, there was nothing in the rule book to create the battle of the quarterfinals. It was something that had to be made up. It was improvised in order to get someone to get the silver medal and somebody to get the bronze medal. During the 1934 World Cup qualification series, matches were given a 2-0 default victory. A good example would be Argentina versus Brazil and Brazil versus Paraguay. In the 1974 World Cup qualification between the Soviet Union and Chile, following a 0-0 first leg draw in Moscow, the ex-USSR, they had to go to Chile. But the ex-USSR team said they were not going to show up to Chile because of the violence and the turmoil of their government. They were having some political instability in Chile. The ex-USSR team said they were not going to show up to play. As a result, FIFA gave a default judgment against the ex-USSR and gave Chile the victory. Another example of this that happened is in 1974 World Cup qualification between Zaire, now the Democratic Republic of the Congo, versus Morocco, who is our country of focus with Senegal. In this match, Morocco claimed after the first leg the referee was unfair and the referee was partial. And so Morocco refused to play a second leg against the Democratic Republic of Congo. And as a result, FIFA awarded Congo a 2-0 victory and calling it a walkover victory because Morocco didn't show up. So Morocco's statement in this situation claimed that they withdrew from the tournament because they believed when they played in the Democratic Republic of Congo's home, they were not treated fairly. In the 1974 World Cup qualification, this was seen as the first time in Africa something like this had happened between two African nations. FIFA put it in the rule book, and it was widely seen as a low point in FIFA's regulation history. Morocco called it like they wanted to play, but according to records, Morocco were deeply, deeply offended with the ruling against them and how FIFA managed the situation. But the show went on. World Cup was a success without Morocco showing. In 1976, in the final round group stages of the AFCON Cup, Morocco was seen in another scandal. This is the second scandal. And the group stages was played between Morocco, Guinea, Nigeria, and Egypt. So in this situation, not a lot of African countries were participating in the AFCON. The AFCON was still a young football organization. You need to understand that FIFA and AFCON, they are private organizations. They are not run by any government. So it's like a private LLC, right? Think about an LLC like McDonald's or Whataburger. They are owned by individuals that bring countries together to play. So the AFCON was really young, and in order to crown a champion, they were working with group stages. And in the final group stage matches, Guinea needed a win to lift up the championship. And on the flip side, Morocco needed a win or a draw to be crowned the champions of Africa. During the final round, in the 65th to 7th minute, a controversial call was made when a Moroccan player was given a red card, prompting the Moroccan players to walk off the field. Now, this is the second time Morocco has acted in this situation. So the first time, after they played the first leg, they were okay with the ruling. They did not fight and they did not nag about it. But the only issue was they decided not to show up for the second leg, a decisive leg. And we all know, we have watched many football games where a team could be up in the first leg by 3 points, and in the second leg, they lose the game on aggregate 4-3. We saw this in the Champions League during 16 rounds of the knockout stages this year. So Moroccan players, they walked off the field between the 65th and the 70th minute of the game in protest. They were in their locker room for 15 minutes. While the crowd were rallied, the ref and the coaches were talking, the Moroccan players decided to come back into the game. They come back into the game and they play, and the game ends on a 1-1, a draw between Guinea and Morocco. And remember, Morocco needed either a draw or a win to be crowned the champion, given the group stage framework. So in 1976, Morocco was crowned the African champion after a protest walk off the field, coming back into the game, playing the game, and then being declared the winner. We get to 1978 in the AFCON third place. This was a game between Tunisia and Nigeria. Tunisia led 1-0, then Nigeria equalized in the 42nd minute. Tunisia disputed the goal and walked off permanently. And when I put the word permanently, what I mean is they never came back. They tried their best to convince the players to come back to the field, but the Tunisian team believed that the ref wasn't being fair to them, and so they decided not to return. And it was a default judgment. Nigeria was given a 2-0 victory against Tunisia and were crowned the third place. Now, in the history of the AFCON, this is the first time a game that was played for a medal at a first place or third place where a team was disqualified and or a team walked off and didn't return. And by default judgment, they gave a victory. This was the first time in history, 1978. Nigeria was given the victory against Tunisia. And now, some people would ask, how did AFCON come up with this rule book? How did AFCON come up with a 2-0 victory?